Hey there, art nerds. So I created this illuminated fleur de lis as part of a workshop with the St. Charles Parish Library's art lab. We turned our illuminated letters into dye sublimated printed tote bags using the Makerspace. So I am starting out with a fleur de lis template as a base, and I'm modifying the base design quite a bit to create kind of a custom fleur de lis. And I went with a fleur de lis because I've already done an illuminated bee for myself a few years ago for a different St. Charles Parish program. You can see the bee right there. And I just wanted to do not only something a little bit different, but if people didn't want to do their own initial, they might want to do some iconography. And I thought the fleur de lis would be an interesting way to go since we live in Southeast Louisiana. So I went with a fleur de lis that is inspired by the Louisiana iris. And I've been playing around with Louisiana iris motifs quite a bit. This is just, another variation on that. So I also wanted to decorate the background of the fleur de lis since it is an illuminated letter. And if you're interested in inspiration for creating your own illuminated letters, illuminated manuscripts are a wonderful resource to draw inspiration from. That's what we drew inspiration from in this presentation. And if you're one of my patrons over on Patreon, I created a presentation to go along with this that includes inspiration. So you can join me at patreon.com/Nato Soup. There we go. My brain kind of fritzed out there for a minute to find the presentation and to draw along with it. So I'm adding some stylized irises in the background, kind of meant to look a little bit like New Orleans wrought iron fences, but also meant to look like very tall irises standing in the background. I also wanted to kind of change up how the fleur de lis ties together in the middle there. So I looked up what insects pollinate Louisiana irises, and carpenter bees or solitary bees are one of the many pollinators. So I decided to draw a carpenter bee there in the center to tie it together. Once I was satisfied with my sketch, I wanted to ink it, and I will have the printable line art up on Patreon as well in case you want to print your own and just color along with me. And I am inking it with a pen that is both alcohol marker safe and waterproof, a Sakura Pigma FB brush pen. These are some of my favorite inking pens. I really love the flexibility of the brush pen. It's like having multiple fine liners all in one. But if you are working along with me, you can use whatever you enjoy inking with. I am working today on Canson XL watercolor paper. This is an inexpensive cellulose-based watercolor paper that I like to use for my start to finish watercolor tutorials, and this technically falls into the start to finish category. So this is part of that playlist. Check the description below if you are looking for more from the very blank page to the very finished watercolor illustration sort of projects. I've got a variety of them there for you guys. So for inking, I just kind of take my time. You can see that I rotate the paper in order to get an angle that is best suited for my wrist. And I'm using a piece of just printer paper to protect the paper from my hand, to protect the paper from smearing ink and from smearing graphite. Once I finished inking, I'm going to allow my inks to cure for at least 10 minutes before I use a white vinyl eraser to erase the graphite. I went ahead and scanned it, and now I am securing it to just a piece of cardstock using some blue painter's tape. You can use washi tape as well. You also don't have to secure it if you don't want to. It just gives it a little extra structure. To make painting easier, I am applying some removable masking fluid to the entire fleur-de-lis, and I'm going to focus on painting the background first, and then I'm going to paint the fleur-de-lis itself. Spring in Louisiana is one of my favorite times of year. It's when the weather is actually mild enough that you want to spend time outside, and obviously everything starts blooming. It's pretty rare for everything to die off during the winter because winters are generally pretty mild down here, but spring is still a really special time, and I kind of wanted to capture that. So my experience with Louisiana Springs, which tend to start all the way in late February, sometimes early March, is that we will have these beautiful high blue sky sort of days. So I mixed together cerulean blue with some cobalt blue from my favorite watercolor palette, my Daily Driver palette. This is a mix of all my favorite brands, all my favorite colors, to kind of capture that like high sky blue quality. And you can see I painted it all over, and I went and gave it multiple layers to try and build up that kind of ombre effect of the sky. This is one of the reasons I applied masking fluid, so that I wouldn't have to worry about working around the border or the fleur-de-lis itself. Now, once my background dried, I am mixing up a green to start painting the iris stalks and the iris leaves. And if you're doing your own illuminated flower or illuminated letter, you can vary this however you want. These are just my choices. And it's just kind of what I felt worked for this. Louisiana irises can vary in terms of color, from this really beautiful sort of blue violet, almost like a lavender, but more trending towards blue, to really dark, rich, intense purples. And I kind of wanted to capture the variety of that. So I am starting with the dark, rich, intense purples for our background violets. And I'm going to leave some of the lighter purples for our foreground fleur-de-lis. Using a masking fluid pickup, I'm going to remove the masking fluid from the fleur-de-lis once I have finished painting the background. You can find these kind of masking fluid pickups even at Dollar Tree. And I have so much more success with removing masking fluid using one of these and trying to use my finger. So if you struggle with removing masking fluid, or you find that it tends to tear the paper, try investing in a masking fluid pickup. I'll have all the materials that I used for this listed out for you guys down in the description below, as well as a link to where you can access the printable line art. Tonic makes this really beautiful ultramarine purple. There's a lot of different brands that make this kind of a color. It's a combination of like ultramarine blue with generally like a hot pink, and it tends to granulate out really beautifully. And I've been using this color a lot when painting irises because it really captures the color of irises very well. So while generally I wouldn't say use this color specifically, this is a color that I really enjoy, and I think it's a beautiful color, so I did want to mention it. I also want to capture the iridescence that you'll see in Carpenter Bee wings. So I did a little bit of kind of underpainting using ultramarine blue and a little bit of phthalo green. If you're creating your own illuminated letter at home, the illuminated part can come from the fact that it has been illustrated or illuminated, or the fact that it has been gilded or gold leaf has been added. Since we're going to be printing these onto bags using dye sublimation, I didn't actually want to do gold ink on this because it's not going to really look very gold when you scan it and you print it. It's going to look very dull. So I'm trying to replicate the effect of gold using golden colors like Quin Gold and India Yellow. With an illuminated icon or logo like this, you actually have plenty of interior space that you can choose to decorate. I opted to keep the interior of the fleur-de-lis pretty simple since this is a class demonstration, and I didn't want to like overwhelm the students or make them feel like they had to really overcomplicate things. Honestly, I think they did a knock out of the park job with their illuminated letters. Last week, we handed out the bags and they looked so good. I think they did such a wonderful job with it. And I really want to thank the St. Charles Parish Makerspace for handling printing and ironing, like doing the transfers of the dye sublimation prints onto the tote bags themselves. If you're interested in learning more about dye sublimation, I recommend you check out your local library. They may have a makerspace where they can help you out with those kind of projects. I don't have an example bag to show you guys. I wish I did. We were kind of in between tote bags at the time when I made my demo, so I don't have one on hand, but I saw my students' bags and they turned out really cool. So I think this could be a great project for other libraries that might be interested in utilizing their makerspace. And if you are a library system in Louisiana and you would like me to come teach a class like this one with you, please consider getting in touch. So for this, I wanted to keep the details kind of simple, kind of graphic, something that would transfer very cleanly and easily. But as I said, if you're doing this for other types of projects, you can get as complicated or as detailed as you wish. This was my first time messing around with dye sublimation. So personally, I have ordered products like Arts Cow does dye sublimation for their products. So I do have some experience with dye sublimation, but not as hands-on an experience as working with the Makerspace allowed me to have. So the watercolor techniques for this project are very simple. It is a lot of just layering and glazing, wet over dry. Now, when we did this in class, we didn't use watercolor for this. We actually used alcohol markers and color pencils because it just went a little bit quicker. While I love watercolor and it is my favorite media and I am pretty quick with it, the dry times can vary wildly. You can sit down and finish a project like this in about an hour and a half on a really good drying day, or it can take you hours as you wait for the paint to evaporate on a very humid day. So when it comes to in classroom sort of stuff, using art supplies that I know the dry times for can be a really good option. So that's why we went with color pencils and alcohol markers when doing this in class, because they also spent time drawing and inking their illuminated letters. Now with watercolor, different watercolors have different properties. Some are more transparent, some are more opaque. So I find it helpful for contrast and clarity to sometimes re-ink my illustrations, and that kind of cleans things up and ties things back together. But it is an optional step that you absolutely do not have to do if you are satisfied with your illustration. I also used some white designer's gouache to add highlights to my illustration, particularly on the gold, to make it look just a little bit more metallic. I apologize that my head is in the shot. My eyesight is not always so great, so sometimes I have to get really on top of what I'm doing. Sometimes that means my head gets between the camera and what you guys are seeing. I do work with my gouache basically directly from the tube because I only use this gouache for highlights, and because it had dried out in the tube, and this is just something that is convenient for me rather than squeezing some out onto my palette and wasting it. You do not have to do this method. It is just what works for me, and I know that some people think it's kind of gross. Once your illuminated letter has dried, you can remove the painter's tape that you were using to hold it to your chipboard or your back of a sketchbook or whatever structure you use to support it. And we have a finished illuminated icon. You may have chosen to do a letter. You might have chosen to do some logography. I really enjoyed creating this project and teaching this project and seeing the tote bags. They turned out amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed this start to finish tutorial and enjoyed hanging out with me today. I, as always, enjoy drawing and inking and painting with you guys. If you enjoy art class tutorials like this one, make sure you are subscribed. Even if you think you are subscribed, do me a favor and double check, because YouTube tells me 80% of you guys are not subscribers. Tutorials like this are made possible thanks to the St. Charles Parish Library System and my amazing patrons on Patreon, with whom I have shared the presentation and the printable. Thank you guys so much. If you enjoy my art and would like to see more of it, you can follow me on social media at NattoSoup. And huge thank you to all of my amazing patrons. Your support and encouragement really means so much to me and makes tutorials like this possible. Thank you guys again. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully this was helpful in allowing you to make art a habit. Bye guys!